You are now listening to the God Queen podcast.
Carl's Jr.'s new guacamole double cheeseburger's only $299.
You forgot the decimal?
Only $299.
Not decibel, decimal. The guacamole double cheeseburger is only $2.99 at Carl's Jr.
Oops. Available for a limited time. Price of participation may vary. Tax not included.
This September at local area Subway restaurants, your meal purchase will help our neighbors in need. Purchase a sub, drink, and chips and help us donate 150,000 meals to local Feeding America food banks. Subway meal includes any sub, salad, or wrap with any drink and chips or 2 cookies. For every 2 meals purchased through September 30th, participating Subway restaurants will donate 1 meal up to 150,000 meals to Sacramento, Stockton, Modesto, and Solano area food banks. 1 meal is the monetary equivalent of 10 cents. Meals secured by Feeding America on behalf of local member food banks. Come in for the sub of the day, make it a meal, and make a difference in the community.
Good morning. It is the God Queen live you are listening to. This is Sansa right here. I appreciate you listening to me on Spreaker, as well as Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, and Spotify. Thank you for being here. I appreciate you oh so much. So I wanted to talk about, number one, how beautiful it is today. Yo, today is like super gorgeous today in California. I can't, oh my God, like it's just so beautiful today. Some days it's too hot. Like yesterday, I think it was a little too hot outside. It was like 100 and something. But right now it's like a good 76 degrees. It just feels great out here. And it's so beautiful. The sun is shining. It is so amazing. And so anyway, that's not the premise of the podcast. So anyway, I wanted to do a podcast about something specific, and it's of course has something to do with me becoming a single mother and getting adjusted to becoming a single mother. And one of the main things that I have been having such a hard time dealing with is the concept of me letting go of my son's father and getting into a new relationship with another man. And that can be very complicated for any woman, whether she was in a regular relationship or a regular marriage or a spiritual marriage. For me, I was inside of a spiritual marriage. I had literally put my all into the situation, and I was prepared to be legally married to my son's father. Of course, I felt like before I met him, I was not like big on like legal marriage, because to me, I want my husband to be around me because he wants to be there, not because he's there out of obligation. And a lot of times when people get married to each other and they sign this legal document, suddenly they stay together simply because of that. And even though they both want to leave the relationship, they're finding so many reasons to stay inside of the relationship, and one of them has to do with finances and taxes, and then you have another excuse. They don't want to break up with each other because of the children. And you know, a lot of people who are married don't understand that your children do see you unhappy, and you staying inside of an unhappy marriage in front of your children is worse than you actually being divorced. And a lot of people will stay together simply because of their children, and that's like a huge mistake. But anyway, because of the way that my son's father abandoned my son, I keep thinking about my son growing older and being better at choosing when I do decide to marry again. And of course, it's been 2 years. My son is about 16 months old. And of course, he has positive male role models around him. I'm not struggling in that department at all. And of course, I don't feel like I need to be in a romantic relationship in order for my son to have a good relationship with someone who is a positive male role model for him. But when it comes to my son having a stepfather, it's a completely different thing. It's a completely different thing. That's a complicated relationship that I really just, you know, I don't want to have or make a mistake. I don't want to make a mistake by choosing the wrong guy. Number one, navigating through all of this after you've gotten divorced from or out of a relationship or you've gotten broken up with, being able to navigate how you feel as far as relationships go in general after that is hard. But then when you're like abandoned during your breakup, where you're abandoned with a child as well, you start looking at the male species very different than you looked at them before. And when people judge me, like a lot of people are very judgmental about me, as far as the breakup between me and my son's father, because of course social media has taken our relationship and spun it into whatever it is that they wanted it to be spun into for entertainment purposes. And my son's father wasn't necessarily the most honest when he was speaking about our relationship, but the way that it ended was already bad, and then the way that my son was abandoned by this man was even worse, and that added insult to injury. So I don't want to injure my child or harm my child any more than what has already happened to him, as far as his developmental stages being toyed with simply because his father decided to, be the pig that he is. You understand what I'm saying? And then at the same time, me having this disdain for his father, and me trying so hard not to take that out on my son. I just hope one day, that I don't do that. You understand? Because it's a lot of disdain for him simply because I don't like the way that he treated, number one, a woman, and number two, how he treats his children. And it's so unfortunate that society praises men when they walk away from their children. Like, a lot of women are blamed when these dysfunctional men walk away from their children. And like I've said before, a lot of damaged people don't know how much damage they inflict on someone else when they do participate in, abandoning their children or abusing their children. They don't necessarily understand what they're doing. I don't want to get in a relationship or a marriage with a new guy, whether it's a spiritual one or a legal one, where I've made the same mistake of choosing the last man that I chose. And then I have to factor in my son's feelings. Like I said, there's a lot of disdain there that I have for his father, and my son is a part of his father. So trying to, teach my son, okay, I know that your father is a part of you, right? But now you have a stepfather, and your stepfather is the type of man that you need to try to emulate, because your biological father, who is also a part of you, wasn't the best version of a man for you. That conversation right there, I don't even know how I'm going to have that conversation with my son. And honestly, I have a lot of time to figure that out. And when he does get, like a decent male role model in his life, me and that male role model in his life during that time can sit down and have that conversation. I don't think I can have to explain that to my son now, but it is something that I'm thinking about. If I do decide to get married spiritually again, which is hard for me because I'm like a penguin, like when I sit in a relationship, when I decide that I'm in a relationship and that I'm in love and that I am with this person, that's how I do. I don't cheat. I don't lie. I do long-term relationships when I do them. But before I met my son's father, I was avoiding long-term relationships altogether. And the reason why was because of my fear of this type of situation happening, where I would have been as hurt as I was when the relationship was over, because of the way that he handled me with so much disrespect and so much disregard. It was vile and it was extremely cruel what he did to me. So for me, it's just been kind of like, I don't want a man treating me bad, but I also don't want my son treated bad either. And it's a duality to my approach when I'm dealing with men. I have to think about not just myself anymore, but my son. Someone asked me the other day, why do I feel so new to single motherhood? If I was raised by a single mother, and I have a 19-year-old daughter where I wasn't in a relationship with, I wasn't in a marriage with her father. Now, when I met her father, of course, he and I was in a relationship. We lived together and everything. My daughter's father is a great dad. He is an awesome dad. So I never classified myself as a single mom before my son was born. For the whole 19 years my daughter has been alive, I've never classified myself as a single mom dealing with her, because her dad has always been there front and center. And with me being raised by a single mom, I had my stepfather there. He wasn't the best version of a man. And my mother made that mistake of dating him. And I don't want to repeat that mistake, because it's a couple of mistakes that my mom has made that I don't want to make those mistakes as well. I want to be a better person than my mother was. And my mother was just trying to be a better person than her mother was. So those generational curses or those hand-me-down thought processes, I'm trying to discontinue within my family. So when I do end up meeting someone else, as far as my son goes, I don't want to, get myself involved with a man who will hurt my son, like my stepfather hurt me. But when I was young, I had male role models. They were there. I had my aunts and uncles. I had friends of the family. I had men in my life. So it wasn't like they were completely gone and I don't know what it's like to have men around. No, men were...